It's so important for you guys to get out here just to find out what this organization is about. You know, I recently was at Autism Speaks. We learned that 1 in 59 children are what they define are on the spectrum of autism disorder. Now, you guys actually tackled that and many other.
We do.
Let's talk about that. How does somebody know that this program is good for them?
Well, if you have a child that is, they use the word struggling a lot, but it could be something that sounds a lot rougher, like, is your family in crisis? Is this child unable to get a good grade no matter how hard they try? Do they lack in motivation, focus? Are they aggressive? Are they anxious? You know, is there a struggle or a crisis that is making it impossible for them to achieve what they should be achieving, behave how they should be behaving, accomplish what they should be able to accomplish for a child of that chronological age? So we're going to take a look at that. We have a full assessment that's going to look at the early development of a child.
And this is a several-hour assessment. This isn't like a quick questionnaire with just, here, you fill this out. They actually have somebody specialized and trained and really help the child express themselves as well.
Oh, right. Brain Balance is going to let the child, I guess, tell us what they need by their own development. As we spin a child in a chair and time that flicker in their eyes, we're looking for 9 seconds. If it's not 9 seconds, then there's a problem with equilibrium. So we're going to look at really early development. Primitive reflexes. A baby's always going to grab your finger unless there's something wrong with the baby. You know, so, but
that's the first sign.
Exactly. But if we're looking at a 10-year-old, if I touch a 10-year-old's hand in a specific way, I shouldn't elicit that same response. They should have say, what are you doing with my hand? Instead of spasming or clamping and going, how did you do that? If they've retained that palm grasp reflex, that's an infant primitive reflex. If it's still in a 10-year-old boy, that's why you can't read the handwriting. That's why he hasn't learned how to tie his shoes.
Wow.
That's why buttoning buttons, zipping zippers, all of that's really tricky. So we're going to look at primitive reflexes that affect development. Some primitives affect things like nail biting, bedwetting, inattention, posture, digestion, the ability to read. So we're going to look at primitives. We're going to look at core development, cross-body coordination, gross motor, fine motor, and then we look at the senses. So auditory, visual, tactile, olfactory, all of it. The whole child, but developmentally, where are they? And we find out where they are and where they should be, and that's where we go after. We go after the difference in those two numbers.
Well, and it's interesting because I know some out there are thinking or saying, well, don't they grow out of that at some point? And actually, I can say from experience of seeing what you guys do, you actually help them move along that to develop out of that, because sometimes some do not develop out of some of those.
No, not at all. I mean, if you retain a Moreau reflex from infancy, that is the startled reflex in a baby, then you've got anxiety levels that will require medication in adulthood. How about we get rid of the Moreau reflex so you don't have an anxious child or an anxious adult? So a lot of us have learned to cope with developmental disabilities or underdevelopment, but your child doesn't.
I like that,
have
underdevelopment.
To.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have
they could
to.
develop more.
Right. And a disability, in my mind, is something that is set in stone. Development is fluid. Do you know that your IQ number is not a fixed number? If somebody says you've got a low IQ, or I'm sorry, your child has a very low IQ, that number is not a fixed statement. That is the development of the left hemisphere of the brain, and let's look at their ability to read and track with their eyes. Can they do this? And if they can't read. So how about we get them the ability to do this? By releasing a primitive reflex that's making that impossible, but also by finishing the development in their eyes.
Right.
It is worse than when we were kids. If you're saying, well, it was hard for me, I know they're going to get through it, and that's really not the case anymore. The change in the environment, Aaron, is so different. It is so different. What was your childhood like compared to the kids that you know are being raised today?
Well, I can tell you, screen time on these mobile devices, I see it all the time, and it is true. I've had so many experts come on and say limit the screen time to 30 minutes to 45 minutes, and I've seen children on their screen hours, sometimes at restaurants on the screen, and at the young infancy of 3 years old, 4 years old, because they're just fixated on that. And you think, oh, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing going on. But behind the scenes, what's going on?
behind the scenes with two-dimensional visual interface. That's the technical term. When you're looking at a 2D image, that's on any smartphone, any tablet, any computer, any television, that is only processing in one part of your brain. And the human brain is not meant to look in 2D. It's meant to look as we are now, except for the people watching at home. You are looking in 2D, but that is your frontal left lobe processing these images. And it's not even what they're watching. They could be watching a religious show. They could be watching educational programming or Sesame Street. But you're talking about only using one tiny part of your brain over and over for hours and hours. And it's not the part of your brain meant to go on and on transferring visual images. So we really need to look at balance. So look about the balance in the day. Are they spending 8 hours on some device or some screen at some point, whether it's academic or whether it's educational or whether it's entertainment? How many hours are they spending there? Are they spending equal amount of hours doing something that would be the other side of the brain, the right brain, which is are they doing a gross motor movement over and over and over? Are they out there playing tennis? Are they engaging in conversation face to face with their friends? How many hours versus how many hours? We really need to use the whole brain in order to have a whole child. So you want to look at balance.
Okay, as you could tell, Rebecca knows a lot.
Too
before this, though, what did you do before you opened Brain Balance?
I was an office manager, and I did accounts payable, I did purchasing. I was an administrator and the mother of an autistic child. My son AJ was diagnosed autistic at 3. We had an ADHD diagnosis before kindergarten, so between 4 and 5. And then by the time we got the middle of kindergarten, by golly, the boy had the ODD diagnosis, which is oppositional defiant disorder. Let me tell you that...
Oh, I didn't even know what that was.
Oh, yeah, ODD, oppositional defiance. So that is a child that will argue with you that the sun's up. So, I mean...
I've experienced that.
Yeah?
yeah.
Well, the thing is all of those labels are labels of observed behavior. So someone said they saw this, they think that's what's going on. There's not a blood test for any of it. So I know that it was like raising 3 kids in the same set of pants, and I'm so serious. It sounds humorous, but this was really, really hard. And all those parents out there who raise a child that has any kind of a struggle or challenge, it's hard on the parents. Marriages fracture, relationships struggle because of the difference in the way a man and a woman, or even two moms or 2 dads would approach parenting. So, it's so difficult, but we're here to tell you that it's not your fault. They're doing the best they can, and the environment that they're growing up in, the strong genes that we're giving them. If you go to college, you're liable to have a very strong intellectually gifted child, but the problem is that combined with growing up now can create ADHD out of the gate. ADHD increasing 500% a year since 2005. The World Health Organization is now looking at ADHD because it's considered pandemic. They've now have 2 different video game diagnoses, an addiction and a disorder all around video games. Well,
and then how are they treating it? They're coming out with labels, but then how is it being treated oftentimes?
Counseling and medication for the most part. You're talking about medicating a symptom, whether it's literally an amphetamine, like your Ritalins, Concertas, those kind of things, or whether it's counseling, helping a child cope with how they're wired, helping them deal with how their engine's running. AJ, how hot's your engine running? But how about we go after the reason why they have an elevated nervous system and get upset easy and hyperactive and being off the walls. What about the why? And if you know what their deck of cards really is, how about you make their deck of cards the same deck of cards as the kid who's doing great? If you know the why, then you can go after it for development and help eradicate negative symptoms like inattention, bad behavior, ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. My son made changes rapidly in Brain Balance, but I did not find the program till he was 15.
That's my question. That was my question there. And some you're able to capture very early on. I thought he was captured very early on, actually. I didn't realize he was 15, really?
I wish 15 and a half. Wow. What I would have given to know about this when AJ was 5 or 6.
Right.
Because by the time AJ was 15 and a half, we had a 12-year deficit between the speed in that beautiful left brain, that logical, linear, literal left boy, and that deficited right, high-functioning autistic ADHD ODD boy. He was all gas and no brake. No filter, not just for his behavior, but even a strong immune response. Guess what? Where that comes from, that frontal left lobe that we use the computer with, also where your immune response comes from. I really would love if they would launch an investigation into the correlation between the rise in autoimmune issues, including eczema, fibromyalgia, all of these things, Crohn's disease, and the increase in the use of two-dimensional visual, which is only going to increase the speed and development of the same part of the brain that is your immune response. So how can it be that we could have a normal immune response because we spend so much time in 2D?
Well, and again, capturing at 15 and a half. Now he's how old?
He just turned 20 on the 2nd. Go AJ.
Wow. Okay, so this was like 5 years ago.
It was. We're almost right. 5 years. Oh my gosh, yes.
And I will say, I've met AJ.
Yeah.
And you said it yourself, and I couldn't say it better. Unless you told me he had everything you just listed, I really don't know that now.
No.
I wouldn't know that meeting him in person. I was like, wait, what? You were with all of this, and again, I thought you caught it when he was maybe 8. This is the first time I'm realizing this was later on as a teenager, where many parents are like, oh no, it's too late. He's already set in his ways. There's just things that can't be done. Because I meet a lot of parents. I'm a part of a couple of organizations because of my sister who is nonverbal. There's a lot more going on there, but I meet a lot of other parents that are in the same condition, and they're just like, I don't know what to do. They're teenagers. They're going to go off into college, but college isn't, especially those with autism spectrum disorder.
Right.
There's more that needs to be done there. UCLA has led the way. Others are following, but it's a slow catch up. But in the meantime, if you could do what she did for her son, now you can understand why she ended up becoming a big supporter of brain balance.
Yeah, personally, autism wreaked havoc in our lives, but I have a vendetta. I have a vendetta, and I feel it's my mission because I know what can help. I know what can really be a game changer, so I'm not going to be quiet, so I might as well do it all day, every day. So, and it makes me get up in the morning, even when it's a hard day, or I'm tired, or because you feel like it's a fight, because this concept that it is something that can be helped, that is something that can be developed, and not just, here's the expectation you need to have for your son. You need to adjust the expectation about what he can achieve. No, he can achieve more than you think he can, or she can. I found out that my son now can be anything. He's not going to end up in a group home if I die. He's not going to be the nerd in my basement. He's going to have a life. He's going to have a wife. He's going to have a career.
And he's very again, you really don't know. In fact, if I had you pick him out of a lineup, you really wouldn't know, and have him talk to you. And I love that he's open to sharing his story.
Oh, yeah.
And because he can relate with so many younger ones that say, wow, okay, nobody understands me. He says, I understand that,
He
right?
does.
He connects with them.
Absolutely. And he's mentored, when we first got involved in Brain Balance and AJ was finishing up, he started to mentor some of the incoming teenagers, to even talk to them at that orientation component and explain to them it's not going to be easy, but it's totally worth it. If you have any questions, you can talk to me. He was always available for them, and he would show up when they had sessions, and he would hop on the balance beam across for them and talk nerd. He's fluent in nerd. So
that's good. I am too, actually. Yes. Any Comic-Con I can go to, I am there. But and this is my point. So if it worked for her, of course, you opened this facility. That's when we were talking as you were opening it. So congratulations on the 1 year.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great achievement.
Thank you.
And I've been here when it's full. Lots of parents here bringing in their kids, and sometimes the kids come in and they're they're kids, right? Kids don't even like vegetables. I just posted the other day vegetables. Remember when we were all kids? We're like, this is terrible. So sometimes they fight midway, but you parents, those of you that are committed to it and you understand the science behind it, yeah, it's a challenge for some parents, right? What are some of those challenges?
Well, some of the challenges, because it's not just as easy as showing up here, handing me your child and saying, fix them and I'll pick them up later.
Yeah.
This is about a commitment of 3 days a week, 1 hour sessions, and that's not it. We're going to ask you to do exercises. Remember that primitive reflex, the palmar grasp? If we find it, there are 2 exercises that go with that one, but the other primitives, there's only going to be 1 exercise attached to directly attack and integrate that reflex into the rest of their self, the rest of their neurology and their brains. But you want to be able to have the development, so we're asking you and really, really challenging you to make sure those exercises happen every stinking day.
Yeah.
And Mom will call it stinking day because it's really hard, because you've got to pull them kicking and screaming some days when they just want to do things other. What I want, what I like, what interests me is not applicable to getting this done now every single day. I would tell my son, the sun comes up, the sun goes down, you're going to have 3 meals, you're going to do your exercises, you're going to go to school. So exercises is not negotiable. It happens.
Yeah.
And so I will tell parents, fight them for them. Fight them for them.
Well
Because,
said.
well,
Yeah.
it is, because it is a fight. You can talk to any of the parents, but they will tell you it's worth it.
Yeah.
The parents that have held on, the parents that have persevered, and the children will thank you. My son thanks me. Do you know that 20-year-old still has a flip phone? Meanest mom ever. So, yeah.
Well, they're dependable.
Yes. So, I mean, he's got a flip phone because he needs to manage how much screen time. Because as a college student and he's a young man who needs to have apps for work.
Wait, so he's in
whatever.
college.
Well, we've actually relocated here, so he hasn't done college here, because this boy is actually getting ready to depart at some point before the new year on a 2-year church mission. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so he was in school in Valencia.
And don't you feel like, I know you're confident in him going versus had he not taken this?
Well, he wouldn't have qualified. So he could have gone on a special mission that would have looked very different. He can go anywhere in the world. He wants to learn a language. He wants to learn about a culture and a people, and he's going to be fine. He is he's gonna do great. I'm really proud of him.
I'm proud of him, but I'm proud of you for taking that leap, that commitment, just as a mom, as a user of the service, and now, of course, an advocate for it, because it works. And I've seen this work.
It does.
I've seen this work with both younger ones and I remember talking about Elias Corey, who is he used to be big in the motorcycle world. Now he's big in the airplane world competition, but he had the ADHD, so he had to learn to focus. He took brain balance. It came up in our interview, and I was like, wait, you did this? He said, yeah, I did. I go, more people need to know. And so there's athletes that have taken this. It's not just children, right?
No. We can start with them as young as 4, but I have counseled with families that have, say, maybe a nonverbal child that's younger than that, children that are much younger. That's going to be an individual decision of an individual center. And so as a mom of an autistic child, I will always have a heart. I will always help, even if they're 40. So I will meet with families one-on-one in those cases, and we are looking at our normal protocols is 4 through 17. So just look at preschool through high school.
Okay.
So, but I have worked with college kids on a one-on-one basis. So they have to be completely committed, because of course they're an adult.
Yeah.
Their parents could want whatever, but if they don't want it, it's not going to happen. And I need a commitment, because we're changing the way they eat too. So home exercises,
eating is important.
reducing screen time, plus a non-inflammatory, clean diet. Food colorings, no way. All right, we're going to take out wheat and dairy for a time, but it's not forever. And the diet piece of it, it's a staircase down to clean eating. So you're not jumping off a cliff. After tomorrow, you eat none of this. It's slowly. Let's just start with breakfast.
Start implementing.
Right. Start with breakfast. Start with wheat. And wheat'll leave first. It will. It's the most inflammatory thing we eat.
Yeah.
We're going to reduce sugar, but we don't want corn syrup, of course, and stay away from anything that's genetically modified. if it's not of this earth, then your body does not know what to do with it, and it's going to cause problems.
You're preaching to the choir here, but I mean, I know in the UK we've got some listeners over there. They're like, yeah, why would you do that? Here in the US, we still are learning why we wouldn't want to do that. But can you take us a little through the tour of this facility? Because we have so many people, that couldn't make it out today, but we thought we would bring this to them. So maybe you could kind of, where do you want to?
Well, it does go. She knows.
Yeah, all right.
It goes that way. So come on.
Lead us.
Batman's going to take you on a tour.
All right, so here we go.
So you're kind of like segueing through my office here.
Yes, this is the where all of the work gets done, and when you get, after they've done their 3-hour evaluation, they determine, and then they have another meeting, and they let you know where your child's at. And actually, it's interesting. You don't have to tell them a thing. They can tell you how your child acts already, and you're like, yep. Yeah.
Well,
it's amazing.
Well, that was when my son was assessed, and they were talking about his, this is going to be hard for him, and he likely bites his nails and puts things in his mouth, and I'm like,
how did you know that?
Right, because severe rooting reflex is really common.
Yeah.
So when we do that assessment piece, this is that sensory motor testing room. And so in this room, we're going to look at all of that development. Senses, balance, gait, timing, fine motor, gross motor. We're going to look how they track when they read. So they're going to take off their shoes, but we want one sock off too. I want one bare foot and one socked foot, because we're going to stimulate one side of a child as well. When we have that assessment, we're going to see if one hemisphere is processing faster than the other. We want to target the slower hemisphere, the slower side of the brain, for stimulation. Sensory is the way to do it. Sensory is how you can get a lot done, a lot of learning done, a lot of development. So we're going to have one bare foot, one stocking foot. So this is where they're going to sit down, they'll take off their shoe, and then they're going to head down into sensory motor.
Sometimes they don't want. I was here once when one child was like, I don't, and the counselors are great here, by the way. Oh my God, the coaches here are amazing. They walk them through it, and by the end of that, they're like, okay, they challenge them, and they end up exceeding.
Our coaches are incredible humans. People talk to us about, well, who will be seeing my child? What's their educational background? It's individual to the coach. I hire the right person. About 90% of them have undergrad degrees. We have a lot that have a kinesiology degree or exercise science, because they understand primitive reflexes. They understand core development. They understand neurology. So it's a great degree for brain balance. So if you know an incredible human that happens to have that degree,
well, and that's not just the logical part, what she just mentioned. It's their attitude. They are so welcoming, because when the children come in, they may have had a bad day, but by the time they leave, because of the coaches here and the positivity you guys exude, and I've seen it firsthand, you guys change the child's perspective, and all of a sudden they come out positive and more driven.
Well, I'm not the only one with passion. The people that I hire inspire me. They love what they do. They do not feel that they have done anything worthwhile unless your child develops. And so we celebrate, we cry, we cheer, we root for these kids.
I will say they invest in your child.
We do. We do. Really it's the only reason we're here. If your child does not develop, then we shouldn't be in business.
There we go. And I love that the majority of the way this has gotten out has been word of mouth. Referrals,
right?
Strong.
Yeah, there's a lot of
That's when you know something's working really well.
Well, sure. Or when AJ was going through the program, so he was in scouting, and when we go to church and he goes to school, so we had other scouts in his troop that went through the program after he did. People from church that were in his class went through the program after he did. And even kids that were younger, because those parents would see me on Sunday and say, Rebecca, can you talk to me for a minute? Mm-hmm. And I knew what was coming. What's going on with AJ? This man, so much difference. He's doing so great. What are you doing? What are you medicating him differently? What's going on? Right. That was
that's always the first. What medication is he on? It's called brain balance.
Yes, exactly.
No medication needed here.
Exactly. So that's how we get a lot of our kids, is because another kid did great. And even, teachers and pediatricians that are seeing the change in these kids are asking the parents, okay, he's doing great. What's going on? What have you changed? And so hopefully all of our parents are proud to say that this is why.
Yeah. No, I love it. Okay, so we're taking the journey down the hall that the child does after they've taken off their sock, and now
they're going to go into sensory motor. I'll let you look this away, but there's a lot of stuff in here.
Okay,
you
so
notice that we've got a very soft floor here. It's called rubber decking. Our kids are not the most coordinated for the most part, but we do a lot of things in here that are very physical. Cross-body coordination, of course, core, gait, timing, aerobic. A lot of challenges in here physically. And so we do provide rubber decking on the floor. There's a lot of mats. We're working on those primitive reflexes in our program at the same time as we're working on the whole child. So they're going to spend 30 minutes in this room with one sock off and a lot of other stimulation that's going to trigger and stimulate one side of their brain, the slower side of their brain. And then they're going to finish that section. Their stimulation will stay here, except for one bare foot goes with them, and this into the cognitive room. All right, so in here we're going to work a little bit of academics, and we're going to work eyes. Okay, and the eyes are incredibly important, and a lot of our kids right now are not tracking well. Their conversion and diversion speed, zoom in, zoom out, is very slow and underdeveloped. They have a lot of trouble seeing over here. They see really well right in front, and their vision is dropping off here. Screens are part of it, because especially those small devices like a smartphone, we're focusing tight all the time, trying to read very small print, watch little videos, and we're losing the ability to then pick up everything out here. And do you really want these kids as 16 and 17-year-olds on the road with you when they don't see peripherally?
Oh, no. Okay. Insurance companies around don't want that.
Well, no. I mean, something has to be done. But I mean, the driverless car could be coming along for very good reason. Yeah. The same people that are giving us the devices are the ones, they know. Yeah. They know what some of this is doing. They're not publishing long-term studies about the effect of screen time on developing neurology, but the right thing would have been research it first before you sell it to the masses and make little kids programs. Do the best that you can with the knowledge that you have. At the moment, infants spending too much time on their back during a certain phase are likely to retain a primitive reflex called the ATNR, the asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, because you're losing that reflex as an infant as you push your face to the side before you're pushing up. But we have the infants on their back to sleep, to lessen our chances of having a baby that dies of SIDS. Right. But it increases the chance of a baby that won't be able to read. So it's they're now, the pediatricians are very well aware of what's going on, and there's now a huge push for tummy time.
Okay. So get the tummy time in.
Tummy time is good.
Yeah. Brain Balance has one of those exercises that kind of they incorporate.
That's the lizard. Yeah. You look like a gecko.
Yeah. It's cool. It's cool to watch. Okay. Is there anything else to
so you've got 30 minutes in the sensory motor room where we're working on sensory motor and a lot of things, and then they're going to take off stimuli, come into cognitive, and they're in here for cognitive. So with a right weak child, that right hemisphere moving slower, that's going to be a child that struggles with things like ADHD or something on the spectrum. We're going to work big picture, because that's where they struggle. We're not going to work where they're strong. We're going to work where they're weak. So we're working on inference, big picture, journaling, written and oral expression. A child that struggles on the left side of their brain, that's a child who can't memorize anything. A child has difficulty reading and doing math, and we're going to work on details and memorization. So whatever they need is what we are working on.
Well, and something I want to bring out, it's different. Some think, is this a tutoring, right?
We don't teach.
Yeah.
We don't teach. We don't counsel. We don't help them cope. We don't give them tools. Yeah. We're not a top-down approach, because even education and teaching, that's a top-down approach. Development is a bottom-up. So we're coming up from that bottom level of their developmental pyramid, and we're coming all the way up to meet those beautiful teachers right in the middle for a very well-developed kid.
And they work well with the teachers, right? You guys are very communicative with schools.
Now, our teachers are on the front lines. Yeah. So with all of these change, those numbers, those increases, in the Corona Norco School District, 1 in 3 kids needs some kind of accommodation. 1 in 3. Wow. So our kids are not okay, and the teachers are having to try to teach them with those issues. And so we will do everything that we can to help every school, every teacher. So we communicate with the teachers, not with just the findings of that assessment on that child, but in any way that we can, helping them understand that movement creates brain development, things that they can do in the classroom. We offer all kinds of tips, and we're there for lunch and learns. We'll come out, we'll bring you food, we'll show you who we are and how we can help you in your classroom. But my goal, anybody up in Sacramento listening, pay for the program. This should be available for every child.
Yeah, I believe that wholeheartedly, which is why we're here, because I've signed off on this. I've seen it work with family members. I've seen it work for others. I've come in here and seen improvements from kids that, first started here and then end up, and it's amazing to watch. And again, you are a product of the service.
I am.
Your child is as well. Others are coming out. It's a process. So I feel that although this will be a common thing 20 years down the line, right now it's still...
No, we're cutting edge. We're
Yeah,
cutting edge.
yeah.
Even though it looks...
Even when you found it, it was pretty like...
Oh, no.
Yeah.
There was no commercial. There was no real website. I found a book. I was given a book, actually, by a friend who cared about me. Read this book. The book I would recommend is called Disconnected Kids by Dr. Robert Malillo.
Yeah.
I found you can get it right now on Amazon for like $7. It's even on Prime, I think. And he doesn't even know I'm plugging his book, but get the book.
Yeah.
It started my journey. It helped me understand primitive reflexes, but it also helped me understand developmental stages. Because developmental stage by age, well, that's something every mother should know. Right. Where should they be doing? What's developing right now? And so
what's normal?
Exactly.
Right?
What's normal and what should you be concerned about?
I mean, I learned that like age 5, dyslexia is very normal at that age, actually. Seeing reverse numbers. Then at what point is it become not so normal?
Right.
And now
D's and B's, that's very common at that age, absolutely.
Yeah. So I know we've had questions in the past. I don't know if we have any questions right now, but I know there was a question, I think that one of your friends actually had about their child as well, right? What do you remember that question by chance, offhand?
How do you know when your child has a disability? This is from a parent, a client of mine. So she has a son who is 7 years old, first grade, and is seeing some issues in school. And she's just trying to find out different resources on how to be aware, what are the signs, what should she know, how could she get the information?
Right. No, that's a really excellent question. Brain Balance itself nationally has a website that has a lot of that kind of information for you. And any center, any Brain Balance center, we do have a little brochure that we would give you. If you came in and asked for developmental stage by age, I'd hand it to you. But that Disconnected Kids can talk a lot about that too. And there is an online assessment you can take at Brain Balance Centers. And that's plural, so brainbalancecenters.com. There's an online assessment you can take. But if you wonder, if it doesn't seem right, if you've got 2 kids and your younger one is acting more mature than the older one, moms, sorry, but Erin, moms know first. We just do.
That's true.
We just do. If you have a gut feeling, please don't rationalize it away. Don't put it off. You really want to look and see where they are. This assessment is very inexpensive, so it's not like a huge commitment to Brain Balance. If there's a center anywhere near you, we're throughout the United States, and we're actually, I know that it's coming for the UK. So,
oh, really?
Yeah,
I'm
it's going. Yeah, it's going. It's going international.
Yeah.
Last year, I met someone at our national convention where we were getting some training, and there was a gentleman from the UK there.
Oh,
so
good.
It's going to be everywhere, but we're considered cutting edge. But some of the things we do feel so old school. So it's like what's old is new again.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, again, make sure to check it out. Brain Balance Centers. There you go.
With an S on the end.
Yeah.
So brainbalancecenters.com. I think you can get there even if you just type in Brain Balance into Google search, and you just want to make sure you go to the official site for Brain Balance Centers. Brain Balance Achievement Centers is actually the full name, but you are in the Rancho Cucamonga Center right now in California.
And one thing I want to bring out as well, because I remember we talked about this, and sometimes parents, it's going to take time, it's going to take effort. You traveled because there wasn't like a Brain Balance down the road from you, right? What was the travel time like for you?
Well, I was in Valencia, which is Santa Clarita Valley in California, where AJ grew up and went, he did go K through 12 there. But we found the closest center was the only center at the time in Southern California, and that was in Encino. And so it was the 5 to the 405
In
to
California
the
traffic,
101.
that is...
Yeah, 101 bad, 405 really bad, and we had to do time on both of them. Some days it was 2 hours each way to get my son help 3 times a week, but it was worth it.
Yeah, because look,
it was worth it.
Fast forward, but you couldn't know that at the time.
No.
But what commitment you had for that, and every parent they have that commitment for their kids. And,
they do. We do anything for our children. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I've heard it. Well, okay, this is an investment. What better? You guys spend so much investments on so many other things that don't develop your child to be able to live on their own.
Right.
And you can be okay that he's on a 2-year mission, right?
Well,
and be all right.
Well, you have to look at it. You have to look at the price of what we do. Brain Balance averages $180 an hour. You need to know that. You need to plan for that. We have financing to help every single family. We have single mothers on disability that we financed. We make it work for everyone, but the child needs what they need. And if you do nothing, if you just medicate, where will this child be in 10 years? What is their earning potential going to be if you do nothing? Will they be able to even be accepted or be able to go to college? What would you give them? We'd give them the world. And that is what you're doing when you develop them. You give them the world. You give them a future that otherwise would not be possible.
Well, I look at AJ and I remember a conversation that I had recently with another organization called Jewels of Youth Foundation, and they had determined that the majority of depression among those that have these disabilities or learning development challenges end up growing and feeling so isolated. I know adults that were never properly diagnosed or treated grow up thinking, what's wrong? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And they feel isolated and depressed and down on themselves. So the gift of confidence and the gift of being able to do what they didn't think that they could do otherwise, that right there is priceless. And when you see that complete change in a child to an adult, and they can take that forever, isn't that what we all want for our children?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The first gift is the gift of why. You mentioned, why am I like this? What's wrong with me? Let's find out what's wrong. Let's find out what's young. But I tell parents all the time, what I'm seeing, nothing's broken. There's nothing broken. Your child's not broken. They're just young. Why are they not acting their age? Because they're not their age. If they're younger in that right hemisphere, like a child with autism or ADHD, they are immature socially and emotionally. Why? Because their right brain is not their chronological age. So you age and develop that right hemisphere, and they start acting their age because they can, not because you taught them. So we develop the child. We bring them as close as we can and work with that family to get them and shoot for that chronological age or above.
I want to say, Rebecca, thank you for being in our
Thank
lives.
you.
I
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank you.
Brain Balance more than you know. And I know many of you out there, if you have any questions, you can definitely send them to Brain Balance Centers. They'll answer them. But you just have to get the assessment. Just do it.
Find out why.
Yeah, find out the why.
Yep.
Even if, because I mean, there are some parents that have children, they weren't labeled ADHD, they weren't labeled autistic spectrum disorder. They don't have those labels. But even then, you can still, again, if they peg your child in that assessment, and you're like, why has my child not been able to test well? Why have they not been able to do this well? And all of a sudden you go through this, it's like an aha moment, like, oh, that makes sense.
Right.
And if they can peg it, they also know the tools to fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We take your child where they are now and we push to where they should be.
Yeah.
So, and where they need to be be able to achieve.
Yeah.
I think that's why the word achievement center is attached to brain balance. And balance is everything. And balance, we talk about brain balance, you'll see the logo with 2 hemispheres. You've got to balance those two computers or you do not have a network.
Yeah, so thank you very much for spending the time with us. We know you couldn't make it out in person. We hope you'll share this video,
Yes.
spread the word. Maybe it doesn't relate to you. Maybe you're just coming across this, but it relates to somebody you know. 1 in 59, again, this is according to Autism Speaks in their research, 1 in 59 have or are on the autism spectrum disorder. That's just that one label alone. There's so many other ADD, ADHD.
And there are new labels every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
So, and some of them, I say, okay, that makes sense. And others, and I get labels, but we never want to live by labels. We want to say, okay, what are the strengths and what can we work upon on the
Right.
development of
Exactly.
their weaknesses, right? And if we can work on that, well, we bring up that, we bring up the rest, and you got a great child, however you see it. So thank you for spending time with us. Again, we're at the Brain Balance Centers in Rancho Cucamonga.
Yep.
I'm Aaron Michael Sanchez. Rebecca.
Ivet.
Yeah, Rebecca's amazing. Go check it out. Brain Balance Centers.
Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone.